Imagine this. You're at rock bottom, your job gone, your savings dwindling, your pride in tatters. You turn to the one person you think will understand, your sister, your blood, the one who's supposed to lift you up when life knocks you down. Instead, she laughs in your face, her voice dripping with mockery, tearing into your failure like it's a joke she's been waiting to tell. That's where my story starts, and let me tell you, it's a gut punch of a tale that'll keep you glued to the end. My name's Jake, and this is how I went from being jobless and humiliated to buying my sister's company and firing her in front of everyone she cared about. It's not just a story of revenge. It's about turning pain into power, and I'm here to walk you through every raw, real moment. I was 29 when it all kicked off, living in Chicago, a city that's as exhilarating as it is unforgiving. I'd been grinding as a project manager at a tech startup, the kind of place with free snacks and foosball tables but a pressure cooker vibe that never let up. The job was my everything. 60-hour weeks, late-night emails, constant deadlines that felt like a race against time. I wasn't rolling in cash, but I was proud. I'd come from a working-class family. Dad was a mechanic, Mom a school secretary, and I was the first to go to college, the kid who was supposed to make it big. My parents saw me as their shot at a better story, and I carried that weight like a badge of honor. But my older sister, Lauren, was always the one who stole the show. Lauren was 3 years older, 32 at the time, and she'd been the golden child since we were kids. She was the straight-A student, the homecoming queen, the daughter who could do no wrong. Growing up, I was the scrappy one. Decent grades, a knack for fixing things, always tinkering in Dad's garage while Lauren was winning awards. She sailed through college, landed a slick marketing job, and by her late 20s, she was running her own boutique PR firm called Spark Vibe. It was small but glamorous, handling clients like hip restaurants and Instagram influencers. She'd roll into family dinners with designer bags, regaling us with tales of schmoozing Chicago's elite, while I was still chipping away at student loans. My parents hung on her every word, their eyes sparkling with pride. While I got the keep at it, Jake gnawed. I didn't mind, not really. Lauren was my sister, and I looked up to her, even if her spotlight left me in the shade. Things started to unravel when my company hit a wall. Startups are a gamble, and we'd been riding high until we lost a key client. The fallout was swift: budget cuts, tense meetings, and then the layoffs. I was called into a sterile conference room on a gray Tuesday, my boss staring at his shoes as he pushed a severance packet across the table. "It's not about your performance, Jake," he mumbled. "We're restructuring." Restructuring. That word burned as I packed my desk, my hands shaking, my chest tight. I'd given that job my all. Skipped family events, worked through weekends, poured my soul into projects that were now someone else's problem. And just like that, I was out with 2 months severance and a resume that felt like it belonged to someone else. I went back to my one-bedroom apartment, a dingy place with creaky floors and a view of an alley. The silence was suffocating. I sat on my sagging couch, staring at my phone, too shell-shocked to call anyone. I wasn't just unemployed, I was unmoored. My identity was wrapped up in that job, in being the guy who'd escaped the blue-collar grind. Now what was I? I spent days sending out applications, tweaking my LinkedIn, praying for a bite. Rejections piled up, each one a little cut to my confidence. My savings were shrinking, my rent was looming, and the weight of failure was like a stone on my chest. I needed someone to pull me out of the spiral, someone who'd get it. So I reached out to Lauren. We met at a coffee shop near her office, a chic spot with artisanal pastries and baristas who looked like they modeled on the side. I was a mess, unshaven, wearing a wrinkled hoodie, my nerves frayed. Lauren swept in, her heels clicking, her phone buzzing like it was alive. She was all polish, tailored blazer, glossy hair, a smile that felt more performative than warm. "Jake, what's up?" she asked, sliding into the booth, her eyes already flicking to her screen. I swallowed hard and spilled it all. The layoff, the dead-end job hunt, the fear that I'd peaked and was now sliding backward. I bared my soul, hoping for a shred of empathy, maybe even a connection to one of her fancy clients. Instead, she laughed. Not a soft, sympathetic chuckle, but a sharp, biting laugh that hit me like a punch. "Oh, Jake," she said, stirring her latte. "You really thought you could hack it in this world? Maybe you're better suited for Dad's garage." I froze, my face hot, my throat tight. "What?" I managed, barely a whisper. She shrugged, her smile smug, almost cruel. "I'm just saying, not everyone's cut out for the fast lane. You gave it a shot, but maybe it's time to lower your sights." Lower my sights? I'd spent years grinding, proving I belonged, and here was my sister, the one person I thought would understand, cutting me down like I was a kid who'd flunked a test. I wanted to snap back, to tell her she was wrong, but the words stuck in my throat. I just sat there, humiliated, as she checked her phone and launched into a story about her latest client deal. I mumbled an excuse, left cash on the table, and walked out, her laughter ringing in my ears like a taunt. That night, I hit my breaking point. I sat in my apartment, a lukewarm beer in my hand, staring at an eviction notice that had arrived that morning. My bank account was down to 4 figures, my job prospects were non-existent, and Lauren's words were a loop in my head. "Maybe you're better suited for Dad's garage." I felt small, worthless, like every dream I'd chased was a lie. I thought about packing it in, moving back to my parents' place, admitting I'd failed. But then something snapped. Her laugh, that cold, mocking sound, lit a fire in me. She thought I was done? She thought she could kick me when I was down and walk away? No way. I wasn't going to let her win. I was going to show her, and everyone else, that I was more than she'd ever given me credit for. I started small because small was all I had. I took freelance gigs, writing proposals, managing small projects for startups too broke to hire full-time. The pay was peanuts, but it kept the lights on and gave me time to think. I'd always been good at strategy, at seeing the forest for the trees. That's what made me a solid project manager. And I wasn't about to let that skill rot. I spent nights researching, diving into industry news, looking for an edge. That's when I found it. An article about SparkVibe, Lauren's PR firm. It was a glowing profile, hyping her as Chicago's next big thing. But the comments told a different story. Clients were bailing, cash flow was tight, and Lauren was too busy playing celebrity CEO to notice the cracks. I went down a rabbit hole, pulling public records, financial filings, anything I could access. SparkVibe was in trouble. Deep in debt, propped up by loans to fund Lauren's flashy office and high-roller lifestyle. Her client list was shrinking, her reputation wobbling. The firm was a ticking time bomb, and she didn't even see it. That's when the idea hit me, wild and reckless but impossible to shake. I wasn't just going to rebuild my life. I was going to buy her company, take it right out from under her, and make sure she felt the sting of losing everything just like I had. It was a long shot and I knew it. I was broke, unemployed, with no real connections. But I had something Lauren didn't: hunger. Her laugh had lit a fuse and I was done playing small. I started reaching out to old colleagues from the startup, people who'd seen me hustle. Most ghosted me, but one, a venture capitalist named Tom, agreed to meet. I pitched him on me, not SparkVibe, not yet. "I'm starting over," I told him over coffee, my voice steady despite the sweat on my palms. "I need someone who bets on underdogs." Tom was skeptical but intrigued. He loaned me $10,000. No strings attached, just a handshake and a "don't let me down." I used the money to hire a financial consultant, Priya, a whip-smart woman who'd worked with failing companies. I showed her everything I'd found on SparkVibe and laid out my insane plan. "You want to stage a takeover?" she asked, one eyebrow raised. "You're talking millions, and you've got nothing." I grinned, undeterred. "Then help me make it happen." She sighed but dove in, mapping out a strategy. We'd need investors, a lot of them, and we'd need to exploit SparkVibe's weaknesses. Its debt, its unhappy clients, its CEO who was too busy posing for photos to notice her empire crumbling. I spent months building my case. I cold-called investors, pitched to anyone who'd listen, and worked freelance gigs to cover rent. I tracked down SparkVibe's ex-clients, offering a vision of a better PR firm, one that actually delivered. Some hung up, but others listened, especially those who'd been burned by Lauren's empty promises. I was gaining ground inch by inch. Tom introduced me to a group of angel investors, and I pitched them hard. Acquire SparkVibe, rebrand it, make it a powerhouse. Lauren's running it into the dirt, I said, my voice steady. I can make it sing. They were wary, but Priya's numbers were airtight, and my passion was undeniable. I was starting to turn heads. I kept my distance from Lauren, ignoring her occasional texts about her crazy schedule. I couldn't risk her suspecting anything, and I didn't trust myself to hide my anger. My parents noticed I was pulling away, asking why I skipped family dinners, but I brushed them off. Work's intense, I'd say, hating the lie but knowing it was necessary. I was playing a high-stakes game, and every move had to be calculated. As I worked, the plan took shape. Priya found a crack in SparkVibe's armor. Its loans were held by a private equity firm losing patience with Lauren's missed payments. If I could convince them to sell their stake, I could gain control without her knowing. It was ruthless, but so was her laughter in that coffee shop. I wasn't just going to take her company. I was going to make her feel the same shame she dumped on me. The thought of walking into her office, her team watching, and telling her she was out kept me going through the doubt, the exhaustion, the fear that I was in over my head. Lauren had bet against me, and I was about to show her how wrong she was. The fire in my gut was burning hotter than ever. My sister Lauren's laugh, that sharp, mocking sound from the coffee shop when I told her I'd lost my job, played on repeat in my head, pushing me through every sleepless night. She'd called me a failure, told me to aim lower, and that betrayal cut deeper than any layoff ever could. I wasn't just going to prove her wrong. I was going to take everything she valued, her precious PR firm, SparkVibe, and make her feel the same humiliation she dumped on me. My name's Jake, and this is the part of my story where I go all in, turning my crazy plan to buy her company into reality. Even as the stakes get higher and the risks start to bite. I was still in Chicago, scraping by in my rundown apartment, the eviction notice taped to my fridge, a constant reminder of how close I was to the edge. But I had a plan now, a wild, audacious one. Stage a hostile takeover of SparkVibe, Lauren's boutique PR firm, and kick her out in a way she'd never forget. I'd learned her company was in trouble. Bleeding clients, drowning in debt, held together by her ego and some shaky loans. With $10,000 from Tom, a venture capitalist who'd taken a chance on me, and the help of Priya, a financial consultant with a knack for spotting weak spots, I was starting to build something dangerous. But wanting revenge is one thing. Making it happen is a whole different beast, and I was about to learn just how brutal that fight could be. The first step was money, and I needed a lot of it. SparkVibe was small, but buying a controlling stake wasn't cheap, especially for a guy whose bank account was one bad week away from zero. Priya's analysis showed the private equity firm holding Lauren's loans was the key. They were fed up with her missed payments and might sell their stake if I could make a compelling case. But to do that, I needed investors, and I needed them fast. I was already pitching to anyone who'd listen, angel investors, old colleagues, even random contacts I'd met at networking events. Most laughed me off. "You're unemployed, Jake," one guy said, leaning back in his chair. "Why would we bet on you?" I didn't flinch. "Because I'm hungrier than anyone you've ever met," I shot back. "And I know how to win." Some were intrigued, but nobody was ready to write a check. Not yet. I kept grinding, working freelance gigs to cover rent and pouring every spare minute into my plan. Priya was a godsend, crunching numbers and building a pitch deck that made SparkVibe's vulnerabilities crystal clear. "Their debt-to-equity ratio is a disaster," she told me, pointing at a spreadsheet. "Lauren's been borrowing to fund her lifestyle, not her business. If you can show investors you'll cut the fat and bring in new clients, they'll bite." I nodded, my mind racing. I started reaching out to SparkVibe's former clients, the ones who'd bailed when Lauren's promises fell flat. I'd call them late at night, my voice steady despite the nerves, offering a vision of a reimagined PR firm, one that prioritized results over flash. "I'm building something new," I'd say, "and I want you back when it's ready." Some hung up, but others listened, especially a restaurateur named Carla who'd been burned by Lauren's botched campaign. "You sound like you mean it," she said. "Keep me posted." That was my first win, a crack in the wall. The real breakthrough came when Tom introduced me to a group of investors at a rooftop bar in the Loop. It was a swanky place, all glass and chrome, the kind of spot Lauren would have loved. I felt out of place in my off-the-rack suit, but I walked in like I owned the room. I had 10 minutes to pitch, and I didn't waste a second. Spark Vibes sitting on a gold mine, I said, clicking through Priya's slides. Great clients, a solid brand, but it's mismanaged. Lauren's in over her head. Missed payments, lost contracts, a team that's checked out. I can turn it around. I've done it before, and I'll do it again. I showed them the numbers. Spark Vibes' debt, its shrinking revenue, and my plan to streamline operations and win back clients. I ended with a gut punch. This isn't just a deal. It's personal. I'm not here to play nice. I'm here to win. The room was quiet for a moment. Then one investor, a woman named Ellen, leaned forward. You've got balls, kid, she said. I'm in for $50,000. The others followed, pledging another $150,000. I walked out with $200,000 in commitments, my heart pounding, a grin I couldn't hide. I was in the game. With the money, I moved to the next phase, convincing the private equity firm to sell their stake in SparkVibe. Priya set up a meeting with their managing director, Richard, a guy who looked like he'd been born in a boardroom. I went in armed with data, Lauren's missed payments, her declining client base, and a projection of how I'd turn the company around. You're losing money on SparkVibe, I told Richard, my voice steady. She's a liability. Sell me your stake, and I'll make it profitable again. He didn't blink, just stared at me like he was sizing up a poker hand. You're unemployed, no track record, no assets, he said. Why should I trust you? I leaned forward, meeting his gaze. Because I'm not her. I don't care about the spotlight. I care about results. And I'm not stopping until I get them. Priya backed me up with a bulletproof financial model, and after a week of back and forth, Richard called. We're open to it, he said. Get the funds and we'll talk terms. I hung up, my hands shaking, the finish line in sight but still so far away. The pressure was mounting. I had investor commitments, but the money wasn't in hand yet, and the equity firm wanted a deposit to lock in the deal. I was burning through my freelance earnings, and my apartment was starting to feel like a cage. Doubt crept in, whispering that I was crazy, that I'd crash and burn and prove Lauren right. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, her laugh echoing in my head. But every time I wanted to quit, I'd remember that coffee shop, the way she dismissed me like I was nothing. That kept me going, kept me dialing numbers, refining pitches, chasing every lead. I also had to keep my plan under wraps, which wasn't easy. Lauren was still texting, oblivious, sending selfies from client events or bragging about her insane schedule. I didn't reply, but I kept tabs on her through social media and industry gossip. SparkVibe was spiraling. Another big client had jumped ship, and Lauren was scrambling to cover it up with glitzy posts and forced smiles. My parents were starting to ask questions, too. Why aren't you talking to your sister? Mom asked over the phone, her voice tight. I dodged, saying I was swamped with work, but the guilt gnawed at me. I wasn't just taking down Lauren. I was risking my whole family. But I couldn't stop. Not now. To keep the momentum, I started building a shadow team, people I'd bring in once I owned SparkVibe. I reached out to Maya, a former colleague from my startup days who'd always been a marketing genius. She was skeptical but curious. You're really going after your sister's company? She asked, her voice low over beers at a dive bar. I nodded, laying out the plan. She laughed when I lost everything. I said, I'm not letting her laugh again. Maya whistled, then grinned. I'm in, but you'd better not screw this up. I also recruited a finance guy, Alex, who'd worked with Priya on distressed assets. They were my secret weapon, ready to hit the ground running when the time came. As the deal with the equity firm got closer, I hit a snag. One of my investors, a guy named Greg, got cold feet. This is too risky, he said, pulling his $50,000 pledge. I panicked, my stomach dropping. Without his money, the whole deal could collapse. I called Priya, my voice tight. What do we do? She didn't sugarcoat it. Find another investor or we're dead. I spent a week pitching like my life depended on it, burning through coffee and adrenaline. Finally, I got a bite. A tech entrepreneur named Sarah who'd heard about my plan through Tom. She liked my grit and pledged $75,000. More than enough to replace Greg. I was back on track, but the close call left me rattled. This wasn't a game anymore, it was war, and I was running out of room for mistakes. With the funds secured, I finalized the deal with Richard's firm. They agreed to sell me a 51% stake in SparkVibe for $1.2 million. A fraction of its peak value, but a fortune to me. I'd used the investor money and a line of credit Priya had helped me get, but it meant going all in. If this failed, I'd be in debt for years, maybe decades. I signed the papers in a sterile office, my hands steady but my heart racing. Richard shook my hand, his grip firm. "Don't make me regret this," he said. I nodded, my jaw tight. "I won't." Now came the hard part. Planning the takeover. I didn't just want to own SparkVibe, I wanted Lauren to feel it, to know what it was like to lose everything in front of the people she cared about. Priya and I mapped out a strategy. We'd call an emergency board meeting, using my new majority stake to take control. I'd walk in, announce myself as the new owner, and fire Lauren on the spot. It was ruthless, but so was she. I pictured her face. Shock, anger, maybe even tears, and it fueled me through the final stretch. I started laying the groundwork, quietly reaching out to SparkVibe's remaining staff. I didn't reveal my plan, just planted seeds. Big changes are coming. I'd tell them, gauging who was loyal to Lauren and who was fed up. Most were the latter. Her micromanaging and tantrums had worn them thin. I also kept an eye on her schedule, thanks to a disgruntled assistant who'd slipped me her calendar. Lauren was planning a big client pitch, a make-or-break moment to save SparkVibe. That was my window. I'd call the meeting right after, catching her at her peak, and tear it all down. The closer I got, the more I felt the weight. I was risking everything. My savings, my reputation, my family. My parents would be furious, Lauren would hate me, and if I failed, I'd be worse off than when I started. But every time I wavered, I heard her laugh, saw her smug smile, and it was enough to keep me moving. I was months away from the finish line, but I could see it now. The boardroom, the stunned faces, Lauren's world crumbling. I wasn't just taking her company. I was taking back my pride, and nothing was going to stop me. The moment was finally here, and it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, heart pounding, ready to jump. I'd spent months clawing my way back from rock bottom after my sister Lauren laughed in my face when I lost my job. Her cruel words, "Maybe you're better suited for Dad's garage," fueling a fire that refused to die. I'd turn that pain into a plan, a ruthless one. Buy her boutique PR firm, SparkVibe, and fire her in front of everyone she cared about. Now, with a controlling stake in her company secured, I was ready to walk into her world and tear it apart. My name's Jake, and this is the end of my story, the part where I face Lauren, deliver the ultimate payback, and learn what it really costs to win. I was still in Chicago, but the city felt different now, sharper, like it was holding its breath. My apartment was still a dump, but it was a command center. Papers strewn across the table, my laptop glowing with emails from investors and Priya, my financial consultant, who'd helped make this takeover possible. I'd raised $1.2 million, convinced a private equity firm to sell me 51% of SparkVibe, and built a shadow team ready to take over. It was a miracle I'd pulled it off, a jobless nobody with nothing but grit and a grudge. But the real test was today. The boardroom showdown where I'd strip Lauren of everything she'd built and show her what it felt like to be dismissed. The plan was simple but brutal. Lauren was hosting a big client pitch at SparkVibe's office, a last-ditch effort to save the company from its spiraling debts and fleeing clients. She'd invited her top staff, key investors, and a handful of Chicago's PR elite, all there to see her play the star CEO. I'd scheduled an emergency board meeting right after, using my new majority stake to call the shots. The timing was deliberate. Catch her at her peak, surrounded by her admirers, and pull the rug out from under her. Priya had warned me it was risky. "This isn't just business," she'd said, her voice low. "It's personal, and personal gets messy." I nodded, my jaw tight. Messy's what I'm going for. I spent the morning preparing. my hands steady but my pulse racing. I put on my best suit, borrowed from Tom, the venture capitalist who'd given me my first break, and rehearsed my speech in front of the bathroom mirror. I'm Jake Carter, the new majority owner of SparkVibe, I'd say, my voice calm but firm, and effective immediately. Lauren Carter is terminated. I pictured her face. Shock, anger, maybe tears, and it felt like justice. But there was a knot in my stomach, too. This wasn't just about Lauren. My parents would be devastated, our family fractured, and I'd be the one holding the match. I pushed the thought away. Her laugh, that cutting sound from the coffee shop, was all the reminder I needed. The SparkVibe office was in a sleek downtown building, all glass and steel, the kind of place that screams success. I arrived early, slipping in through a side entrance thanks to a disgruntled assistant who'd become my inside source. The pitch was already underway in the main conference room, Lauren's voice carrying through the glass walls, smooth and confident. I stayed out of sight, waiting in a small office with Priya, Maya, and Alex, my shadow team, ready to step in once the dust settled. Priya checked her watch, her face tense. "You sure about this?" she asked. I nodded, my throat dry. No turning back now. When the pitch ended, I heard applause, then the hum of conversation as the room emptied. Lauren was basking in the glow, shaking hands, her smile wide. My assistant source texted me, "She's heading to the boardroom. Investors and staff are there." I took a deep breath, straightened my tie, and walked down the hall. The boardroom was packed. Lauren at the head of the table, flanked by her CFO, a few board members, and a dozen employees, plus the investors and clients from the pitch. The air was thick with anticipation, everyone expecting Lauren to announce a big win. Instead, they got me. I pushed open the door, every eye snapping to me. Lauren's smile faltered, her brows knitting together. "Jake," she said, her voice sharp, "what are you doing here?" I didn't answer, just walked to the front of the room, my steps deliberate. The silence was deafening, the weight of their stares heavy. I turned to face them, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "Good afternoon," I said, loud enough to carry. "My name's Jake Carter, and as of this morning, I'm the majority owner of SparkVibe, holding a 51% stake." A gasp rippled through the room, heads turning, whispers starting. Lauren's face went white, her hands gripping the table. "What the hell is this?" she snapped, standing up. I didn't flinch. "I've called this emergency board meeting to make a few changes," I continued, my eyes locked on hers. "Effective immediately, Lauren Carter is terminated as CEO and removed from all company operations." The room erupted, gasps, murmurs, a few shouted questions. Lauren's CFO tried to speak, but I raised a hand, cutting him off. "This isn't a discussion," I said. "The equity firm sold me their stake because SparkVibe's drowning, missed payments, lost clients, a reputation in freefall. Lauren's been too busy playing celebrity to notice, but I'm here to fix it." I pulled a folder from my briefcase, Priya's financials, and slid it across the table. "The numbers don't lie. She's out." Lauren lunged for the folder, her face twisted with rage. "This is a lie," she screamed, her voice cracking. "You can't do this. This is my company." I met her gaze, my voice cold. "Not anymore. You laughed when I lost my job, told me I was nothing. Now you're the one with nothing." The room went quiet, the weight of my words sinking in. Lauren's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition. Then tears spilled down her cheeks. She turned to her team, her investors, but nobody moved. They'd seen the numbers, heard the truth. She was done. I stepped back, letting Priya take over to outline the transition. Maya and Alex were already moving, handing out new contracts to the staff, most of whom looked stunned but relieved. The investors were whispering, some nodding, others typing furiously on their phones. Lauren stood frozen, her hands shaking, then grabbed her bag and bolted for the door, her heels echoing in the silence. I didn't follow. I'd done what I came to do. The room was mine now, and SparkVibe was too. The next few hours were a blur. Priya and I met with the board, securing their support with a plan to rebrand SparkVibe as VibeWorks, a leaner, results-driven firm. Maya started contacting clients, offering deals to win them back, while Alex audited the books, uncovering more of Lauren's financial missteps. By the end of the day, we'd stabilized the ship, and the staff, most of whom had been fed up with Lauren's tantrums, were on board. I left the office at midnight, exhausted but buzzing, the weight of months of planning lifting off my shoulders. I'd won. The fallout hit hard and fast. Lauren called me that night, her voice raw with tears and rage. "How could you do this to me?" she sobbed. "I'm your sister." I clenched my jaw, her laugh flashing in my mind. "You did this to yourself," I said. "You laughed when I was down. I just returned the favor." She hung up, and I didn't hear from her again. My parents were next, their voicemail a mix of shock and anger. "Jake, what have you done?" Mom said, her voice trembling. "You've torn this family apart." I didn't call back. Couldn't explain it, not yet. The guilt was there, sharp and heavy, but so was the satisfaction. I'd taken back my pride, and no one could take that away. Word spread quickly. A local business blog picked up the story, headlined "Sibling Showdown. Brother Takes Sister's PR Firm in Stunning Coup." It went viral, shared across Chicago's tech scene, with comments split between awe and outrage. Some called me a genius. Others called me a monster. I didn't care. I was too busy running VibeWorks. We signed 3 new clients in the first week, including Carla, the restaurateur who'd trusted my vision. Maya's campaigns were hitting hard, and Alex's financial overhaul was pulling us out of the red. The company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, and it was mine. Lauren disappeared for a while, moving to a friend's place, her social media dark. I heard through a cousin she was jobless, her reputation shot. Part of me felt a pang. Despite everything, she was my sister. But then I'd remember the coffee shop, the way she'd cut me down, and the pang would fade. My parents stopped talking to me, their silence louder than any argument. Family dinners were a thing of the past, and I'd lie awake some nights, wondering if I'd gone too far. But then I'd walk into VibeWorks, see my team hustling, see the numbers climbing, and know I'd made the right call. Looking back, I wonder if I could have done it differently. Talked to Lauren, given her a chance to apologize, kept it private. But that laugh, that moment when she wrote me off, changed me. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving I wasn't the failure she saw. I took her company, yes, but I also took back my life. VibeWorks isn't just a business. It's a testament to what you can do when someone bets against you and you bet on yourself. If you're watching this and you've ever been kicked when you're down by a sibling, a friend, or life itself, know this: you're not done. That pain? It's fuel. That failure? It's a starting line. You can rebuild, rebrand, and rise higher than anyone ever thought possible. I did it, and I'm not special, just stubborn. Lauren laughed at me, but I'm the one laughing now, and I'm not stopping. Thanks for hearing my story. It's raw, it's real, and it's proof that the underdog can win.